Soft indigo light poured through the vast crystalline dome of the Andromeda Embassy, casting fractured rainbows across the polished obsidian floor. Delegations from 92 civilized worlds milled beneath its soaring arches, each bearing symbols of heritage and power. Some wore living armor grown from symbiotic fauna. Others floated in anti-gravity stoles woven from microfilament. A few carried nothing but their voices, able to shape raw energy into shimmering glyphs. Into this mosaic of alien grandeur stepped Ambassador Liara Vega of Earth. Vega was small in stature, but possessed a presence honed by decades of navigating both UN chambers and backwater spaceports. She wore a custom-tailored uniform of deep cerulean, trimmed with the silver braid of Earth's Unity fleet. Her dark hair was pulled back in a no-nonsense knot, her brown eyes bright with unspoken calculation. At her hip hung a ceremonial sidearm, a fusion of electromagnetic pulse and plasma containment, though it was as much a diplomatic accessory as a weapon. Behind her, Captain Idris Malik oversaw the human contingent, 60 officers in pressed uniforms, 10 support staff, and a modest retinue of aides. Earth's fleet was represented by a holographic model hovering beside them, a sleek carrier-class flagship, a pair of stealth frigates, and for sensor corvettes. The display was smaller than those of most member races, but Vega's aides whispered that Earth's true strength lay in ingenuity rather than bulk. A chime echoed. The central days activated. An elder Durax of the Zandari collective rose, an 8-limbed silhouette shimmering with bioluminescent tattoos. Durax's voice was as low as tectonic rumblings. Ambassador Vega, he intoned, the Zandari Federation reminds this gathering that the neutral expanse remains closed to any military assets. Yet your vessels hover above Saturn's rings. Withdraw them, or be judged in breach of Concord Treaty. His gaze flicked to the hologram of the human frigates, then drifted to Vega's calm profile. With measured serenity, Vega stepped forward. Elder Durax, Earth's scientific mission to Saturn is purely exploratory, mapping high-density methane plumes and testing new atmospheric drones. We have no hostile intent. She paused, meeting Durax's multifaceted eyes. However, if the Federation doubts our purpose, we are prepared to transparently share all data gathered. In full compliance with Concord regulations. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Next to Durax, the Trian Collective's delegate, an angular being named Vreek, smirked. Vreek's people were notorious for covert operations. Rumor held they had already infiltrated several embassies. Your science drones, Ambassador, are identical to the reconnaissance vectors used in Trian surveillance, Vreek hissed, barbs of telepathic suggestion coiling around Vega's mind. We suspect Earth tests its stealth capabilities. In our backyards. Vega's jaw tightened imperceptibly. She raised a hand to halt any attempt at telepathic intrusion, a standard non-violent countermeasure issued by the Unity fleet. Earth respects each member of the Concord, she said coolly. If there are specific concerns about drone signatures, we welcome joint calibration sessions. Let us dispel any misunderstandings through cooperation. Elder Durax inclined his head. Cooperation, yes, but not at the cost of security. The Expanse holds secrets too perilous for a nascent fleet. His words snapped the attention back to a flickering holo-projection, a web of pulsating wormhole nodes along the Zandari frontier. Our sensors recorded unauthorized subspace activity. Durax continued. What say you to those anomalies? Admiral Tarek Soren, who had until now stood with silent vigilance in the embassy's back chamber, activated his communicator. His voice came crisp, overlaid through the central PA. I am Fleet Admiral Soren of the Unity Fleet. All wormhole activations detected by the Zandari perimeter are within scheduled tests conducted by the Galactic Cartography Institute, a civilian scientific body registered with the Concord. We can provide their logs and manifest within the hour. Soren's assurance carried weight. The Cartography Institute, funded jointly by the UN and private universities, was known for harmless but ambitious projects. Yet as the holograph spun to show matchups between Institute coordinates and Zandari alarms, it became clear that though most wormholes aligned, two did not. A pair of glowing rifts hung beyond any civilian project's remit. Vega's eyes flickered. Two anomalies remain unexplained, she admitted. We are as curious as you. If the Federation will permit our specialists to study them in tandem, we stand ready. Her tone struck a careful balanced deference to the collective's security. Concerns, confidence in Earth's transparency. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Jirax swung his head toward the Trian delegate. Vreeks bowed with maddening politeness. Very well, the Zandari elder said at last. Joint investigation. But any incursion into Zandari space, human or otherwise, will be met with force. A ripple of tension passed through the assembly, like a caged animal stalking prey. Yet Vega smiled, a measured, diplomatic smile. Agreed. Behind the scenes, once the public session adjourned, Vega slipped into a private suite with Admiral Soren. The room's walls displayed feeds from human listening posts along the Perseus rim. Those unregistered wormholes, she pressed, have our code signatures. How did the Zandari alarms not catch them before? Soren's expression was grim. Because they weren't ours. He tapped a holo console. A series of data streams unfurled, each labeled with human cipher names: Hecate, Athena, Prometheus. These wormholes are Tachyon surge tests classified at the highest level. They can backfeed subspace integrity by reverse cascading Tachyon pulses. Effectively, their weapons. He paused. We thought them secure, hidden beneath civilian covers. But someone's leaked our signature, and the collectives found out. Vega absorbed the revelation, heart tightening. Humanity's ultimate deterrent, its secret ace, was now exposed. They think we initiated these trials, she whispered. The Concord will demand accountability, perhaps sanction Earth, or worse. She straightened. But if we confess, the Concord will revoke our membership. If we deny, we risk open war. Soren's eyes glinted with determination. Then we must turn their suspicion into cooperation. Let them think we discovered an unknown faction, and we simply wish to help stop it. We'll offer full joint oversight to neutralize the threat. Vega exhaled, steeling herself. Very well, Admiral. On my mark, we propose an interspecies task force, 1/3 civilians from the Cartography Institute, 1/3 observers from the Trian Collective, 1/3 Zandari officers, and one human team under your command. Soren smiled, that rare crack in his impassive mask. Perfect balance. And in the meantime, we buy time to secure the Tachyon archives and find who betrayed us. As the silvery doors slid open, Ambassador Vega returned to the main hall. The second session of the Concord was about to begin, this time under the watchful gaze of every major power in the galaxy. Behind the facade of calm diplomacy, Earth's fate and its dark secret hung in the balance. The quiet diplomacy of Chapter 1 had set in motion a chain of events that would test humanity's resolve, cunning, and ultimately its willingness to show the stars its true military might. The cobalt sky above Titan simmered with electric storms, the moon's swirling orange haze punctuated by distant flashes of lightning. Hidden within the upper atmosphere, Captain Mira Talos guided the Nightingale through the turbulent winds. Around her, the ship's adaptive camouflage drifted like a living shadow, bending both light and sensor emissions until even the ionized particles of the storm seemed to part before it. Approaching designated coordinates, reported Lieutenant Darnus True, his fingers dancing across the holo console. Trian disruptors detected at bearing 117 Mark 16. Cloaked in phase shift signature. Letherian plasma tenders at 203 Mark 04. Talos nodded, eyes narrowing. The Trian Collective's covert operatives were infamous for subspace saboteurs ships that could slip behind enemy lines, sever communications, and ignite reactors from within. And the Letherians, with their molten core engines, provided the perfect support, funneling destabilizing energy charges into any disruption campaign. Deploy decoy ray, Talos ordered. Launch 50 micro-drones set to mimic Nightingale's signature. Then initiate reverse Tachyon broadcast. In moments, the frigid upper atmosphere of Saturn's largest moon became a hive of tiny craft, each broadcasting a phantom fingerprint that mimicked the frigate's stealth envelope. As the decoys scattered, the Nightingale slipped away. Sensors focused on the hidden incursion force below decks, Specialist Juno Fierce tinkered with the vessel's core tuning coil, the heart of their reverse tachyon generator. Steady as she goes, she muttered, sweat beading on her brow. We channel the tachyon field in counter-phase to the probe's disruption waves. If synchronized correctly, it should collapse their cloak and unmask their hull integrity. Do it, Talos replied. The storm's electric fury crackled around them, but nothing on Titan's surface could compare to the storm raging inside this battle of subatomic forces. Suddenly, the tactical grid shimmered. Probes locked on a target, True announced. Surface readings match Zandari dreadnought for kilometers long, living steel hull. Bioreactors glowing. They're leading the charge. Talos' pulse quickened. The Zandari dreadnoughts were legendary, warships grown from engineered alloys fused with sentient organisms. Each vessel was half ship, half thing, capable of self-repair and psychic resonance. If one fell, it would tear open their own ranks from anguish. Target identified, she said. Switch protocol to precision engagement. We can't risk collateral damage. These are Concord allies, not enemies. True hesitated. Captain, protocol calls for neutralizing any Zandari vessel engaging cloaked hostiles in neutral expanse. We should. Talos cut him off gently. We are here on a joint mission of investigation, not confrontation. Only if they fire first. She paused, voice low. We're diplomacy with teeth, not butchery for ego. Moments later, a whispering pulse rippled through subspace. The Trion disruptors had fired. Particles danced across the Nightingale's shields. In that instant, Fierce's tachyon coils surged to life, sending a reverse warp pulse that fractured the cloaking field into motes of dispersing light. The hidden ships flickered into view, sleek silver darts, bristling with disruptor cannons. And the dreadnought revealed itself, psychically shrieking against the intrusion on its territory. Evasive, Talos barked. The frigate twisted, rivering. Clouds of charged methane, Letherian plasma bolts sizzled past the hull, leaving molten streaks in their wake. On the dreadnought's command deck, Lord Marshal Durax observed the scene through biosympathetic eyes. Why does the human ship protect the Trion wolves? He rumbled, tentacles quivering. He tapped a thought-radiant glyph, a command to his helm. High above Titan, the Zandari dreadnought reversed thrust, plunging through the storm toward the Nightingale. No sooner had it maneuvered than it unleashed a psychic shriek, a psychic pulse designed to scramble human neural links. Brace, True shouted as the ship shuddered. Officers gripped consoles as thought noise assaulted them. But the humans had come prepared, neural dampers embedded beneath their helmets. Staved off the worst of the psychic intrusion, Talos seized her chance. Return fire with twin rail plasma cannons target the dreadnought's reactor vent. She flipped a switch as the storm's howling winds intensified. Two searing streams of superheated plasma discharged, streaking through the Titanian atmosphere. The dreadnought's bioreactor flared crimson, then blue, signaling critical failure. Alarms blared. Durax's tentacles snapped in outrage. All units, neutralize the human upstart. Trion disruptors and Letherian escorts split their focus. Some tried to finish off the crippled dreadnought. Others pursued the Nightingale. Talos pressed the attack. Secondary weapons, ion interdictor missiles. Launch volleys at Trion disruptor Phi class, under cover of the methane tempest. The frigate's missile racks spun, ejecting clusters of projectiles that wove through the storm. Each missile locked onto the disruptor's flux signatures, detonating with concussive force that shredded shielding. Marauder class down, True reported. Voice tight. One disruptor remaining. She's trying to escape at Vector 315. Intercept. Talos ordered. Divert auxiliary power to engines. We'll cut her off. The Nightingale surged forward, ripping through the wine-sheared gases. Specialist Fierce monitored the tachyon readout, ensuring the lingering pulse would continue to unmask any stealth attempts. The disruptor corvette, seeing its allies fall, twisted hard and launched into a hasty retreat. Talos didn't hesitate. Open a pursuit corridor. Engage at will. For 3 heartbeats, the two ships danced through the clouds, plasma bolts and tachyon pulses crossing in violent flashes. Then a final rail gunshot drilled through the disruptor's hull, collapsing its reactors in a silent implosion. The Sky lit with the aftermath of the blasts, the storm's lightning reflected in the shredded remains of two coalition vessels. And in that moment, the Nightingale floated alone, battered but unbroken. A lone sentinel in an alien tempest. Aftermath above the clouds, back on the command deck of the hidden human station. Orbiting Saturn, Admiral Tarek Soren watched the skirmishes. "Replay, excellent work, Captain Talos," he said as the holo screen folded. "But every action leaves a trace. The Zandari will demand answers and the Trion will scream of betrayal." He turned to Lieutenant Commander Amina Bashir, his intelligence chief. "Send full logs to Ambassador Vega. Include minutiae on the Letherian plasma spectra. They'll recognize their own tech. We need to spin the narrative. A third party manipulated both sides." To Sao Discord, Bashir nodded, tapping a holo datapad. "Transmission encrypted. Ambassador will receive it into standard minutes." Soren's gaze drifted toward the dark eye of the storm on Titan. "We hold the advantage for now," he murmured. "Our covert operations succeeded. Their forces are scattered, but we've burned the last of our goodwill." Below him, the icy rings of Saturn spun in silent witness. In the shadows, at the edge of known space, alliances were fracturing. Humanity's gambit had revealed not only its striking power, but the lengths it would go to protect its secrets in the weeks to come. Every Concord delegate would reconsider their ties to Earth, with some choosing open hostility and others whispering for humanity to lead. And in the hidden rift fields beyond the Perseus Rim, unseen eyes and unseen hands watched, for Chapter 2 had closed on a Pyrrhic victory, and the true puppeteer stirred in the void, preparing the next move, in a game that spanned stars.
The orbital void above Epsilon Eridani burned with the light of 1,000 warships. The Coalition's armada, an uneasy alliance of Zandari dreadnoughts, triune disruptor swarms, the Therian plasma tenders, and dozens of other Concord races stretched horizon to horizon. Their banners and bioglyphs glowed in tangled patterns, each race's detachment maneuvering to cover the flanks of another. At their center hung the colossal command ship Tyrannus, its living steel hull rippling with bioluminescent defense. GLYPHS. Opposing them, humanity's fleet emerged from jump space in a tight wedge. 500 vessels, ranging from nimble corvettes to the flagship ISS Providence. They were outnumbered 2-1, undersized in displacement and firepower. But beneath each sleek hull lay the secret weapon of Earth, the Tachyon Surge, mankind's ultimate deterrent. On Providence, Admiral Tarek Soren stood on the upper bridge, a slender silhouette against the viewport's cosmic panorama. Around him, the tactical team roiled with last-minute calculations. The enemy's formation was textbook, designed to funnel attackers into kill zones where overlapping fire would shred any intruders. Yet Soren's plan relied not on brute force, but on the manipulation of time's arrow itself. "Signal all units," Soren's voice echoed. "Hold fire until my mark. Eclipse Nexus is primed. Remember, the real battle begins before they even know they're at war." A hush fell across the bridge. Even the hum of the ship's reactors seemed to pause as remote captains echoed the order. Far below, in the reactor catacombs, the Tachyon supercharger throbbed with coiled energy, its coils humming in counterface, ready to tear a tear in. Causality. At the forward control, Lieutenant Commander Amina Bashir activated the subspace beacon. "All squads report status," she called. One by one, ship-to-ship coms crackled. Red Squadron ready. Stealth frigates cloaked and awaiting. Carrier Group Alpha fighters fueled and armed. Nightingale and escorts standing by to flank. The last to respond was Captain Mira Talos, Nightingale in position at Vector 720. Awaiting Tachyon corridor activation, Soren's eyes gleamed. "Then let us begin." Epsilon Eridani's star flared in the distance, its light refracted through the fractured shields of the opposing fleets. At Soren's signal, human carriers opened their hangar bays, unleashing squadrons of dark matter fighters. They streaked toward the Coalition's outer ring, cloaked in inverted phase fields that rendered them ghost-quiet. At the same instant, the supercharger roared to life. On Providence and every human dreadnought, tachyon coils discharged in unison, a pulse of retrocausal energy that rippled outward faster than any light-speed transmission. In the milliseconds before the pulse struck, human ships vanished from the Coalition's long-range sensors. At the same moment, the Coalition perceived flickers of tachyon anomalies, but by the time any beacon could identify their source, it was already too late. From the vantage of the Tyrannus, screens flickered. The flagship's sensor chief, four-armed Zandari lieutenant, pounded his station in alarm. "Sir, shield readings collapsing? Incoming energy readings correlate with retrograde tachyons." Lord Marshal Dirax's 8 limbs clicked with agitation. "Activate primary deflectors. Prepare to counterburst with gravimetric pulses." But the tachyon surge had already bypassed their shields. Seconds later, reality itself stuttered. In one fragment of cosmic time, the Coalition's outer ring of cruisers flickered out, their reactors self-destructing in a cascade of temporal feedback. Debris rained inward like shattered stars. Across the void, human dreadnoughts reappeared where they had been, and also where they would have been after the battle. It was as though the engagement had worked backwards. Weapons discharged in reverse, unmaking shields before firepower arrived, unbalancing the very geometry of combat. "Now, fire!" Sorin roared. Rail plasma cannons on every human ship unleashed torrents of superheated matter, slicing through confused Coalition vessels that were still recovering from the tachyon shock. Carrier-borne fighters dove through shattered formations, deploying grav tethers that crippled any warship attempting to flee. Stealth frigates like the Nightingale weaved between macro fractures in subspace, striking at command nodes and sensor arrays. On the Tyrannus, Dirac strode to the tactical overlook, Dreadnought's psychic echo crackling. "All units, full barrage." He ordered, but his command came too late. In the haze of disoriented allies, a human stealth frigate accelerated into the flagship's blind spot. Captain Talo's voice came crisp over the comms. "Target locked on vent panel Alpha 2. Firing ion stasis torpedoes, now." With a hush that belied its power, 2 torpedoes slammed into the Tyrannus hull, drilling through its living steel skin and rupturing the bioreactor. The flagship quaked and collapsed inward in an orgy of psionic feedback. Its death scream and otherworldly wail of shattered consciousness echoed across the battle, shaking even the human dreadnoughts. "Command flagship down," reported Bashir. "Coalition structures in chaos." Sorin allowed himself a grim smile. "Maintain pressure. Focus on command cruisers priority 1, Zandari, then Triune, then Letharian." Amid the carnage, pockets of fierce resistance flared. A Letharian, plasma tender, vessel bright with molten fury, turned its broadside toward a pair of human carriers and unleashed a torrent of superheated particles. The frigate Aurora dove into the stream, its shields glowing white-hot as the plasma struck. But before the tender could launch a second wave, human destroyers closed in on its vulnerable flanks, hammering its hull with repeated ion beam volleys. In moments, the tender detonated, its immolating flare painting the void crimson. Nearby, a triune disruptor trio sought sanctuary behind asteroidal debris. Their disruptor bolts flickered like gray sparks against the charging lines of approaching fighters. Yet the fighters equipped with micro-tachyon emitters unwove the disruptors, cloaks, and sent them spiraling into asteroid fields, where they exploded in silent IMPLOSIONS dot as the last of the Coalition's disorganized units fled in broken columns. The Providence closed on the battlefield's heart. Sorin monitored the status of the 1,000 ships arrayed against humanity. Fewer than a third remained operational. Behind him, the star chart pulsed with red markers marking coalition losses, a cosmic graveyard. "Hold your fire," Soren commanded. "This fight is over. Let them retreat." Voices on the bridge buzzed, with relief and shock. For no one, not even the hardened admirals, had fully grasped the scale of humanity's triumph. The Takin surge had not just defeated an armada. It had demonstrated a command over time itself. Aftermath in the wake of silence hours later. As crippled coalition ships limped toward repair docks and human vessels regrouped, the void lay eerily still. No fighter skirmishes, no stray torpedoes, only drifting wreckage, and the hum of salvaged drones. Admiral Soren gathered his senior staff in the Providence's War Council chamber. Holographic displays showed Coalition command networks dark, shattered, disconnected. "The Concord will reconvene within 48 standard hours," Soren said. "They will come seeking treaties, reparations, and guarantees. We must be ready to negotiate from strength, but also from restraint. Today, we proved the galaxy wrong about human resolve and ingenuity. Tomorrow, we must prove we can be trusted." Lieutenant Commander Bashir leaned forward. "Sir, our intelligence warns that the leak of our Takin signatures was intentional. Trapped to lure us here." She tapped a Hala icon, a shadowy fractal. "We believe an unknown faction manipulated the Triune and Zandari to trigger this battle. They remain at large." Soren's eyes narrowed. "Then the war is not over. It's only just begun. But tonight, humanity's moment of revelation is complete. Let the stars remember that when Earth decides to fight, time itself bends to our will." Below them, distant stars shone through the shattered veil of battle. In the aftermath of that singular volley, the galaxy had learned two immutable truths: never underestimate an upstart world, and never mistake silence for surrender.
The wake of Epsilon Eridani's maelstrom was a tapestry of twisted metal and drifting ghosts. Moments after Admiral Soren's order to hold fire, the void settled into an eerie hush. No engines thrummed, no comms crackled. Even the wreckage seemed to float in reverent suspension, as though the cosmos itself paused to ponder what it had just witnessed. Human salvage corvettes moved among the carcasses of coalition warships, their drones harvesting scattered energy cores and ferrying the injured to triage vessels. Above them, the first star of Epsilon Eridani glowed cold and indifferent, the quiet council on Luna's sea of tranquility. President Sofia Moreno stood before the panoramic viewport of the Grand Assembly Hall. Behind her, delegates from every major world in the galactic Concord bearing Zandari biocrest, others cloaked in Trian silk swatch with masked expressions. Moreno's voice was steady when she began. "Yesterday, we shattered expectations. We revealed a power that can unmake shields before they rise and unravel time before it tightens. Let no one mistake that power for wanton conquest we wield. It's so the galaxy need not ever feel compelled to test it again." Applause rippled through the chamber, but in the corners, murmurs of fear and calculation persisted. The once fractured Concord now teetered on the edge of surrender and subjugation. Fractures and forging in the weeks that followed, peace talks replaced war councils. The Zandari Collective, humbled by the loss of Tyrannus, petitioned Earth for joint governance over the neutral expanse and unprecedented concession. The Trian Collective, stripped of its disruptor fleets, sent envoys bearing gifts of rare crystalline data cores, seeking a pact of hegemony in exchange for restored trade routes. Even the Letherian clans, masters of molten engines, offered to share their plasma refinement techniques under the aegis of a human-led research coalition. Yet not all overtures were sincere. Whispers spoke of hidden confederations wary that Earth's moral restraint might one day falter, should provocation cross some unseen threshold. In the backrooms of interstellar hotels, intelligence officers from half-forgotten races plotted mercenary uprisings. Clandestine weapons found their way to fringe worlds. Humanity's demonstration had quelled armies, but it had also sown seeds of paranoia. The burden of silencing the subterranean chambers of the Unity Fleet's headquarters On Callisto, Admiral Soren convened with Captain Talos, Lieutenant Commander Bashir, and Intelligence Chief Amina Roshan. Holographic maps of the Perseus Rim flickered above them, marked with unexplained energy signatures that defied classification. "Your tachyon surge has granted us strategic primacy," Talos said, voice low, "but those rifts to beyond our cartography logs are still unaccounted for. Whoever leaked our technology isn't finished." Roshan tapped a datapad. "Analysis of subspace echoes suggests a fifth party, unknown vectors aligning with neither coalition nor human signature. They've been moving behind the scenes, perhaps even orchestrating the Concord's fracturing." Her eyes met Soren's. "They want us distracted by our triumph so they can build in the dark." Soren's jaw clenched. "Then we must close. Ranks shield our secrets and expose the true provocateur. But we can't let fear undo what we've achieved here." A new dawn in the verdant world of Nova Alexandria. Earth's foremost cultural envoy, Ambassador Liara Vega, marshaled the first Earth Concord Symposium. For reconstruction, scholars and artists, engineers and poets gathered, sharing visions for a galaxy renewed by human ingenuity and compassion. Holo murals displayed Earth's own descent from fractured nations to unified planet. Lectures recounted mistakes made and lessons learned. Yet in the corridors beyond the symposium's light, security teams intercepted encrypted transmissions, hinting at the archivist, a shadowy figure claiming credit for the wormhole leak, and promising to reveal the hypocrisy of peace. Vega's heart darkened. If humanity's greatest victory became its greatest vulnerability, they might yet face an adversary far more dangerous than any fleet. The promise of restraint back on Earth. President Moreno addressed the world in a broadcast, seen on every orbital station and planetary capital. "We stand at a crossroads. We have been given the power to bend time, to silence entire armadas before they threaten us. But power without purpose is tyranny. Let all know, we will never fire the tachyon surge salvo unless we have no other choice. We choose vigilance over aggression, unity over fear." Her words resonated in city squares, echoing through megascrapers and desert outposts alike. Citizens once tense with dread found solace in her pledge. Across the system, memorials sprang up, plaques bearing the names of lost coalition and human souls alike, a testament that even in victory, the cost of war remained indelible. Echoes in the silence in the dead zone beyond the Perseus Rim. Deep within an uncharted wormhole nexus, a lone observer watched the news feeds on a cracked holoscreen. The archivist's hooded form flickered in distorted light. A rasping voice echoed, "They think they've won. They have only bought time to forget who they were, time to be ensnared by their own pride." We remember. With that, the transmission cut. In the shrouded depths, the archivist turned back to arcane consoles, lines of code cascading in shimmering glyphs. Somewhere across the stars, new wormholes bubbled into existence and registered, untraceable, waiting to be turned into weapons. Epilogue. The galaxy exhaled. Star systems once poised on the brink of war now dared to hope for peace under Earth's watchful eye. Yet in the silent expanse, humanity's revelation had opened as many doors as it closed. For in forging an era where the stars went silent, they had also awakened the darker pulse hidden behind the void, and the next chapter of their story lay in the shadows between time, waiting to emerge.